In late February 2026, the United States military launched Operation Epic Fury, a massive kinetic campaign targeting the Islamic Republic of Iran. President Donald Trump justified the strikes to the public with a specific, terrifying timeline. He claimed Iran was actively rebuilding its nuclear program and was only 2 weeks away from deploying a deliverable weapon. But highly classified documents told a conflicting story. An official assessment from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the agency overseeing all U.S. intelligence gathering, explicitly stated there were no efforts to rebuild their enrichment capability. While the administration publicly focused on dismantling nuclear sites and taking out leadership, the internal reality involved high-level counterterrorism officials resigning in protest and politically appointed envoys intentionally sabotaging peace negotiations. We need to examine how the United States military initiated a massive conflict to neutralize a nuclear threat that its own intelligence agencies stated did not exist. This timeline shows a consistent messaging strategy stretching back over 30 years. The idea that Iran is weeks away from a bomb is a recycled political narrative rather than a spontaneous reaction to 2026 intelligence. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu utilized this urgency rhetoric continuously. In 1992, he claimed Iran was years away. By his 2012 UN address, he drew a red line on a cartoon bomb, predicting weaponization by 2013. The timeline constantly slipped backward, but the vocabulary of imminent destruction remained rigid. Hawkish lobbying groups in the United States adopted this external state pressure to influence domestic policy. Organizations like AIPAC expended massive resources to dismantle the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, the international diplomatic agreement that had successfully restricted Iran's nuclear capabilities. This lobbying effort was financed by megadonors. Billionaires like Sheldon Adelson poured over $100 million into PACs, making their financial support strictly conditional on the administration executing aggressively hostile policies toward Iran. The 2 weeks away claim deployed in February 2026 was the final culmination of a 3-decade lobbying strategy to manufacture public consent for regime change. Following the June 2025 Operation Midnight Hammer strikes, Iran's nuclear facilities sustained severe physical damage, significantly degrading their operational baseline. The intelligence community drew a sharp line between possessing latent, highly enriched uranium and possessing an active weapons program. Their continuous assessments confirmed that Iran's supreme leader had not actually authorized the weaponization of that material. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard submitted official written testimony confirming that Iran was not actively rebuilding its program. Yet during live congressional hearings, she omitted those specific paragraphs, actively self-censoring to avoid contradicting the president's rationale for war on camera. The executive branch actively suppressed its own agency's verified consensus to maintain the illusion of an immediate threat. To manage the negotiations, the administration bypassed the State Department, delegating sensitive diplomacy to politically appointed envoys. Envoys like Kushner and Witkoff possessed deep ideological ties to Israeli leadership, but lacked technical nuclear expertise. They deliberately imposed scientifically impossible zero enrichment demands, guaranteeing the Iranians would reject the terms. Witkoff then informed the White House that Iranian negotiators had boasted of having enough material for 11 nuclear bombs, a claim that third-party diplomats and international monitors confirmed simply never happened. This created a textbook case of alliance entrapment. The State of Israel had already initiated kinetic strikes against Iran, structurally forcing the U.S. military to join the offensive in order to preempt inevitable Iranian retaliation against American assets in the region. The chaotic escalation resulted in a U.S. Central Command Tomahawk missile striking an elementary school in Manab, killing 175 civilians. The president deflected blame, suggesting Iran bombed its own citizens, a claim a U.S. military investigation quickly disproved. This sequence of events fractured the national security apparatus. Joe Kent, the director of the National Counterterrorism Center, the primary agency analyzing global terrorism data, resigned in protest. He publicly accused Allied officials of executing a sophisticated misinformation campaign to entrap the United States. The Board of Peace was an elaborate bad faith holding pattern designed to fail. It provided a moral smokescreen for an unavoidable regime change conflict. The actual drivers behind the 2026 war were clear: alliance entrapment at 35%, domestic donor incentives at 25%, and diplomatic sabotage at 20%. A regime change gamble accounted for 15%, leaving genuine threat misperception at a mathematically insignificant 5%. Operation Epic Fury was overwhelmingly a political choice driven by external leverage and domestic finance, rather than an empirical security imperative. In response, Iran executed an asymmetric economic retaliation strategy against global shipping lanes. By targeting energy infrastructure through the Strait of Hormuz, they intended to impose unbearable economic costs on the West. Rather than collapsing under the weight of the decapitation strikes, the Islamic Republic rapidly consolidated hardline power, elevating Mojtaba Khamenei to supreme leader and launching brutal domestic purges. If central authority completely fractures, the U.S. military faces the dire probability of being dragged into a bloody, multi-decade occupation to stabilize a hostile country of 85 million people. By allowing a manufactured narrative to override verified intelligence, the United States destroyed a phantom nuclear threat. In exchange, it bought a global economic crisis and a highly radicalized, entrenched enemy.